When I moved into Willow Creek Estates, I thought I had found the perfect neighborhood. Tree-lined streets curved around manicured lawns like something out of a postcard. Every mailbox matched. Every hedge was trimmed with military precision. Even the trash cans seemed to roll to the curb in straight lines. It was the kind of place where people waved politely but never quite smiled with their eyes. And at the heart of it all was the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Specifically, its president, Cynthia Holloway. Cynthia had lived in Willow Creek for nearly 20 years. She liked to remind everyone of that fact. She walked the neighborhood twice a day in tailored slacks and pearl earrings, as if she were inspecting her kingdom. If a blade of grass grew half an inch too high, she noticed. If a wreath stayed on a door a week past a holiday, she documented it. And if someone parked where she didn't approve, well, I was about to find out just how far she would go. The beginning of trouble, I had lived there for 6 months when the incident happened. Long enough to understand that the HOA had strict rules, but not long enough to realize how selectively those rules were enforced. I kept my lawn trimmed. I repainted my shutters the approved shade of Forest Whisper. I even submitted a request form to change my porch light. But I also believed in something radical, that my driveway was mine. That belief turned out to be controversial. It was a Saturday afternoon in early spring when my friend Daniel came to visit. We'd gone to college together, and he had recently been appointed district attorney for the county. I was proud of him. He'd worked tirelessly to get there. Daniel drove a black Ford F-150. Nothing flashy, just a clean, well-maintained truck. He pulled into my driveway around 2 p.m., parked neatly, and stepped out carrying a bottle of wine. We spent the afternoon catching up, laughing about old stories, and enjoying the sunshine on my back patio. Around 4 p.m., I heard a sharp metallic sound. At first, I thought it was someone dropping a ladder. Then I heard it again. A loud, deliberate scraping. Daniel and I looked at each other. "What was that?" he asked. My stomach tightened. "I have a feeling I know." We walked through the house and out the front door. That's when I saw her. Cynthia Holloway was standing in my driveway, holding a metal garden shovel and dragging it slowly, deliberately, along the side of Daniel's truck. For a moment, I couldn't process what I was seeing. The shovel screeched against the black paint, leaving a silver scar from the back tailgate all the way to the front door. "Hey!" I shouted. Cynthia jumped, but she didn't drop the shovel. Instead, she turned slowly, like someone annoyed at being interrupted. "Oh," she said coolly. "Good. You're home." Daniel stared at the damage in disbelief. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded. Cynthia adjusted her sunglasses. "This vehicle has been parked in violation of HOA regulations." "In my driveway," I said, stunned. "Yes," she replied crisply. "Commercial vehicles are prohibited." Daniel blinked. "Commercial?" She pointed at the truck. "Large trucks disrupt neighborhood aesthetics." "It's a personal vehicle," he said calmly. "Register to me." Cynthia sniffed. "It's still unsightly." My heart was pounding. "You can't just damage someone's property because you don't like how it looks." She crossed her arms. "I've left warnings before." "No, you haven't. I left a notice in your mailbox last month about excessive street presence of oversized vehicles." "That was about overnight street parking," I shot back. "He's in my driveway." The board interprets the covenant broadly. Daniel stepped forward, voice measured but firm. "Ma'am, you have no authority to vandalize private property." Cynthia's lips thinned. "I have every authority to protect property values." She actually believed that. That was the terrifying part. Daniel took out his phone. "I'm calling the police," he said quietly. Cynthia laughed. "Oh, please. They won't do anything. We work closely with local enforcement." That sentence chilled me. "Are you threatening us?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Just stating facts." Daniel didn't argue. He made the call. Within 15 minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled up. Officer Ramirez stepped out first. He knew Cynthia. That much was obvious from the way she walked toward him confidently. "Cynthia," he greeted cautiously. What's going on? She gestured toward the truck. This homeowner is in violation of HOA covenants. I took corrective action. Ramirez looked at the deep scratch along the side panel. You did this? Yes. With a shovel? Yes. He exhaled slowly. Ma'am, that's vandalism. She straightened. It's enforcement. Daniel stepped forward. Officer, I'd like to file a report for criminal damage to property. Ramirez turned to him. And you are? Daniel reached into his wallet. My name is Daniel Whitaker. He handed over his ID. Ramirez's expression changed instantly. His posture shifted. The other officer, who had been writing notes, froze mid-scribble. Cynthia frowned. What's the matter? Ramirez cleared his throat. Mr. Whitaker is the district attorney. Silence fell over the driveway. Cynthia blinked. I'm sorry, she said, almost laughing. The what? Daniel met her gaze evenly. I'm the district attorney for this county. The color drained from her face. In that moment, everything changed. Her confident stance crumbled. The woman who had just vandalized a vehicle without hesitation suddenly looked unsure. Well, she stammered, that's unfortunate. For you. Daniel asked mildly. She swallowed. I assumed it was some contractor truck. That wouldn't justify property damage either, he replied. Officer Ramirez cleared his throat again. Ma'am, we need to document this. Cynthia's composure cracked further. Surely this can be handled internally. No need for official charges. Daniel's voice remained calm. You intentionally caused thousands of dollars in damage. It was a misunderstanding. You dragged a shovel across my truck from bumper to bumper. Her hands trembled slightly. I was protecting the neighborhood. From what? I asked. A friend visiting. She looked at me as if I'd betrayed her. You moved here, knowing the standards. The officers stepped aside briefly with Daniel. I couldn't hear everything, but I saw paperwork begin. Cynthia paced. I've served this community for years, she muttered. I built these standards. When Officer Ramirez returned, his tone was formal. Cynthia Holloway, you are being cited for criminal mischief and property damage. Her mouth fell open. You can't be serious. I am. This is absurd. I'm the HOA president. That doesn't grant immunity. As he reached for handcuffs, she recoiled. You're not arresting me. You'll be processed and released on bail. The neighbors had begun gathering by then. Curtains twitched. Doors opened. Whispers spread like wildfire. The Queen of Willow Creek was being handcuffed in her own domain. As they led her to the patrol car, she locked eyes with me. This isn't over, she hissed. I believed her. News travels fast in controlled communities. By Sunday morning, every resident knew what had happened. Some avoided me. Others quietly expressed support. An older couple down the street stopped by with cookies. She's been out of control for years, the husband whispered. No one's ever stood up to her. Daniel filed formal charges on Monday. The repair estimate for his truck came in at $4,800. The damage wasn't superficial. She had pressed hard. Intentional. The HOA board scheduled an emergency meeting. Cynthia had been released on bail but was temporarily suspended pending review. I attended the meeting. The clubhouse was packed. Board members sat stiffly at a folding table. One cleared his throat. We take these allegations seriously. They're not allegations, someone muttered. She did it. Murmurs filled the room. A woman stood up. She fined me $300 for having the wrong shade of curtains. Another said, she threatened legal action because my son's car was parked overnight. It was like a dam breaking. Years of pent-up frustration spilled out. And for the first time, Cynthia wasn't in control of the narrative. 2 months later, the case went to court. Cynthia had hired a private attorney. She claimed emotional distress, said she had been under pressure, argued she believed she was acting within her authority. The judge was unimpressed. Ms. Holloway, he said firmly, homeowner association bylaws do not supersede criminal law. Her shoulders slumped. She was ordered to pay full restitution for the truck, plus court fees, and placed on probation. The conviction would stay on her record. For someone obsessed with reputation, it was devastating. But that wasn't the end. During the investigation, financial irregularities surfaced. HOA funds had been used for administrative travel. Personal landscaping at Cynthia's home had been billed to the association. Suddenly, the vandalism case was the least of her problems. An audit was launched. She resigned before she could be formally removed. Charges for misuse of funds followed months later. The neighborhood changed after that. A new board was elected. Rules were clarified. Power was distributed instead of centralized. And something unexpected happened. People started talking to each other. Not through warning letters. Not through fines. 6 months after the incident, I ran into Cynthia at the grocery store. She looked smaller somehow. Less polished. She hesitated when she saw me. "I never meant for it to go that far," she said quietly. "You dragged a shovel across a truck," I replied. She nodded faintly. "I thought I was protecting something important." "At what cost?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked away. I learned that power without accountability becomes dangerous. I learned that some people hide control issues behind community standards. And I learned something else. Bullies rely on silence. The moment someone stands firm, the illusion cracks. When Cynthia heard Daniel was the district attorney, she froze because, for the first time, she realized consequences applied to her too. It wasn't about who he was. It was about the fact that the rules she weaponized could also protect others. Willow Creek isn't perfect now, but it's better. And every time a visitor parks in my driveway, I smile a little. Because I know something Cynthia didn't. Respect builds communities. Fear just breaks them. When I moved into Willow Creek Estates, I thought I had found peace. The neighborhood looked like something out of a magazine. Perfect lawns. Identical mailboxes. Freshly painted fences. Even the sidewalks seemed cleaner than the rest of the city. But I quickly learned something important. Willow Creek wasn't peaceful. It was controlled. And the person in control was HOA President Cynthia Holloway. Cynthia had lived in the community for nearly 20 years. She spoke about the neighborhood as if she had personally built every house with her bare hands. She walked around with a clipboard, taking notes. If your trash bin stayed outside 1 hour too long, you received a warning letter. If your grass grew half an inch higher than regulation, you received a fine. She called it maintaining standards. Most of us called it fear. I had lived there about 6 months when everything exploded. It was a bright Saturday afternoon when my old college friend Daniel came to visit. We hadn't seen each other in almost a year. Life had gotten busy, especially for him. Daniel had recently been appointed district attorney for the county. He worked long hours, handled serious criminal cases, and rarely had time for social visits. So when he said he was driving over, I was genuinely excited. He pulled into my driveway in his black Ford F-150 around 2 p.m. The truck was clean, polished, and parked neatly within my property line. We spent hours talking, laughing, remembering college stories, and catching up on life. Everything felt normal. Until we heard the noise. A long, metallic scraping sound. It was slow, intentional, and wrong. Daniel looked at me. "That doesn't sound good." My stomach dropped. I already had a bad feeling. We rushed to the front door. And there she was. Cynthia Holloway, standing beside Daniel's truck, dragging a metal shovel across the side of it. The sound was sickening, metal grinding against paint, leaving a deep silver scar along the entire length of the vehicle. "Hey!" I yelled. She stopped but didn't look ashamed. She looked annoyed. "Oh good," she said calmly. "You're home." Daniel stared at his truck in disbelief. The scratch stretched from the tail light to the driver's door. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded. She adjusted her sunglasses. "This vehicle is in violation of HOA regulations." "In my driveway?" I asked, shocked. "Yes. Oversized and commercial-style vehicles disrupt neighborhood aesthetics." Daniel stepped forward. "This is my personal vehicle." "It looks commercial," she replied coldly. "That doesn't give you the right to damage it." I snapped. She crossed her arms. I have warned residents about truck visibility before. You left no warning, I said. The board interprets the covenant broadly. Daniel pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. Cynthia laughed. Oh, please. They won't do anything. That confidence. That certainty. It told me this wasn't the first time she'd abused her power. 15 minutes later, 2 patrol cars arrived. Officer Ramirez stepped out. He clearly recognized her. Cynthia, he said carefully. What happened? She pointed at the truck.
Hi, I'm for Sam.
Ramirez looked at the long scratch. You did this. Yes. With a shovel. Yes. Daniel stepped forward. I want to file a report for criminal damage. Ramirez asked for his ID. Daniel handed it over. Everything changed. Ramirez's eyes widened slightly. His posture stiffened. He glanced at his partner. Then he looked at Cynthia. Ma'am, this is Mr. Daniel Whitaker. She frowned. And he's the district attorney. The silence that followed felt heavy. Cynthia blinked. I'm sorry, she said slowly. The what? Daniel met her eyes calmly. I'm the district attorney for this county. And just like that, she froze. The confidence drained from her face. Cynthia's posture shifted immediately. Well, that's unfortunate, she muttered. For you. Daniel replied calmly. She swallowed hard. Officer Ramirez cleared his throat. Ma'am, we're going to need to document this. Surely this can be handled internally, she said quickly. There's no need for formal charges. Daniel's voice remained steady. You intentionally damaged my vehicle. That's a crime. It was enforcement, she insisted. It was vandalism, Ramirez corrected. Neighbors had begun gathering. Doors opened. Curtains moved. Phones came out. For years, Cynthia had ruled Willow Creek with warning letters and threats of fines. Now she stood in my driveway, under police supervision. Cynthia Holloway, Officer Ramirez said formally, you are being cited for criminal mischief and property damage. Her face turned pale. You can't be serious. I am. When the officer gently turned her around to cuff her, the entire street went silent. The most powerful woman in Willow Creek was being arrested. As they guided her toward the patrol car, she glared at me. This isn't over, she whispered.
But it was.
At least for her. The damage to Daniel's truck cost nearly $5,000 to repair. The scratch was deep. She hadn't tapped it lightly. She had pressed down hard. Intentionally. Daniel formally filed charges. At first, many neighbors stayed quiet. Then something interesting happened.
People started speaking up.
At the emergency HOA meeting the following week, residents filled the clubhouse. She fined me $400 for parking overnight when my son was visiting, one man said. She threatened to sue me over the color of my curtains, a woman added. She billed us for administrative travel that no one approved, another neighbor said. The room buzzed with anger. An audit was launched, and what they found was worse than anyone expected. HOA funds had been misused. Landscaping expenses at Cynthia's home had been billed to the association. Travel reimbursements lacked documentation. Within 2 months, she resigned. But resignation didn't stop the legal process. In court, she claimed she was under stress, that she believed she had authority, that she acted to protect property values. The judge was firm. HOA bylaws do not override criminal law. She was ordered to pay full restitution, court fees, and placed on probation. The conviction would remain on her record. For someone obsessed with control and reputation, it was devastating. The financial investigation continued even after her sentencing, and more charges followed. 6 months later, Willow Creek felt different. Lighter. A new HOA board was elected. Rules were clarified. Enforcement became reasonable instead of personal. Neighbors began talking to each other again, not through letters, but face-to-face. One afternoon, I ran into Cynthia at a grocery store. She looked smaller, quieter. I never meant for it to go that far, she said softly. You dragged a shovel across someone's truck, I replied. She nodded faintly. I thought I was protecting the community. At what cost? I asked. She had no answer. She walked away slowly. What I learned from all of it was simple. Power without accountability becomes dangerous. Some people hide control behind the word standards. And bullies thrive when no one challenges them. The moment Daniel calmly said, "I'm the district attorney," everything changed, not because of his title, but because it reminded her of something she had forgotten. The rules apply to everyone, even the HOA president. And now, every time a visitor parks in my driveway, I smile. Because Willow Creek finally understands something Cynthia never did. A community built on fear will eventually crack. But a community built on respect, that one lasts.